People, deluded, I'm back again as usual. Good morning, good afternoon, and of course, good night. Now, if you're reading reports in relation to Arsenal, we've been linked with another new player, people. His name is Andrea Trindade, I believe. Forgive me for mispronunciation. Plays for Fluminense. Edu has been spotted at the training ground, people. You can't draw too many conclusions. You know, it is the off break. He is back in his homeland, and there's probably some strategic partnerships. Don't know why I couldn't say that in relation to why he was actually at Fluminense, people. Again, obviously, with Edu being Brazilian, we hope he finds the next stars. I'm sure Arteta would love a new midfielder. I'm sure Arsenal fans would as well. We need some long-term replacements for the existing players. Jorginho's, can be used in certain roles. He's probably not going to be here forever. El Nene's a good valued member of the squad, but not really someone to build the team around or have of significance. Obviously, after that, you've got Thomas Partey, who is a quality player, but his contract's running down and there's concerns over injuries. There's a lot to like about Mr. Andre. He's 22, turning 23 in July. As Wenger says, at 23, that's when you really become a footballer. That's when you really start to learn your job as an individual. There's a lot to like about him. He's only 5'7", 12 stones, but, he's a tiny giant, if that makes sense. He's a tenacious tackler. He sticks to his job. Got a very good short and passing range. Doesn't lose the ball too much. We'll get onto it in a second, but when you look at his heat map, he does get all about the place. He's firmly a modern day midfielder. There's no surprise why he's been linked with Bayern Munich, Arsenal, Barcelona, Benfica, Liverpool, which we'll get into, but probably the most aggressive of the teams in Liverpool who tried to sign him in the summer. There's a lot to like about him, and like a lot of players that find themselves in South America, with the greatest of respect to the Brazilian league, because everybody's got to start somewhere, it's sooner rather than later he will find himself playing in one of Europe's top 5 divisions, whether that's Spain, Germany, England, France, Italy. If I haven't said that already, who knows? Of course, at 23, there's a lot of rawness about the individual. For me, I think his passing could be a tiny bit more adventurous. I think his tackling is good, but he could need a bit of polish there. Obviously, standing at 5'7", you're never going to be the most, dominating of forces in the air, but there's a lot to like about him in front of the back four, people. He protects well, he sticks to his task, he plays with his head up, he backs himself. Obviously, I think a lot of improvements could be made by him in the final third, but I actually feel, he actually could become a tiny bit more of a creative influence. If I was to compare him stylistically to anybody, loosely reminds me of Bruno Guimaraes, and there's a lot of similarities, mainly with the positions he takes up in the middle third of the pitch with Arsenal's very own Jorginho, who ironically plays for Italy, but like the man in question, is obviously of Brazilian descent. He is contracted until 2026. Obviously, he's going to cost a lot of money. What that is, I don't know. But if numerous teams in Europe are fighting over you, especially Premier League clubs, he's going to cost a lot of money. He's contracted until 2026. He's got 2 Brazilian caps. Once upon a time, he actually won Best Defensive Midfielder in 2022 in his homeland, and he was also in the Team of the Year. As I said, there's a lot to like about him, people. And despite the fact of he's only 5'7" and 12 stone, people, like I said, he's a man mountain. I was just doing some quick maths, people. Forgive me if I'm wrong. For progressive carries throughout the season so far, he scores 31. For progressive passes, 130. He's got 12 progressive ball recovered in the middle third of the pitch as well, which is also very likable about the guy, people. There's a lot to like about him. And again, Edu should be scouting his homeland. Arsenal should be finding the players of tomorrow. We got to remember, Mikel Arteta, as his career went on, he actually started playing further and further back. So I think there's a lot for Mikel Arteta to like about this guy's current playing style in the short term, in the medium term, and obviously in the long term. Again, it won't be an easy fight to obtain in, people. I think on average, he gets 86 touches a game, has a passing accuracy of 66.4 accurate passes a game. That puts him about 92% of total passes, people. So there's a lot to like about him, people. Aerial duels, he only I think has 33%, which again is a glaring weakness. I just think there's just general bits and pieces in his game that he could polish up. But other than that, he's a quality player. Like I said, it's clear to see why Liverpool won him. Again, I don't know where he would be. Personally, I think we've lost the ground on him. Again, I'm not privy to what Edu or Arteta or any of them are doing on the back burners, but to me, as an honest football fan, Liverpool tried to get him in the summer. You'd imagine personal terms are done. You imagine he struck up some sort of relationship with Jurgen Klopp or the people that make the decisions at Liverpool and is in regular contact. You'd imagine Fluminense are probably in direct dialogue with Liverpool. And from a playing point of view, obviously Liverpool Liverpool are a great club. You know, they're the only team that have beaten Manchester City to the league. Liverpool are a historical big club. They're a magical club under Jurgen Klopp. They're in a bit of a rebuild, and that might entice him to play with McAllister and Szoboszlai. You know, you're probably seeing McAllister play probably a lot deeper in his early Liverpool career than he was consistently for Brighton. But it seems like he's the final piece to the puzzle over there at Liverpool, if I'm honest with you. They need a six. Obviously, they've got Gravenberch, they've got McAllister, they've got Szoboszlai, players that can play there, less so Szoboszlai, but there's no out and out, you know, dominating force in the middle of the park, a tough tackler, a destroyer. Even though he's so much more to that, it just seems like there's a spot for you. Where at Arsenal, you're fighting with Thomas Partey, you're fighting with Declan Rice. You know, obviously Jorginho is still on the books, and we know Jorginho isn't going to play 38 games, but as shown against Manchester City, there's a couple of games or game plans that Mikel Arteta wants to go with that could see Jorginho used, people. So I do think he would give us a boost in January, but in terms of game time, I'm not sure. I do think he would suffer a bit of a culture shock in the Premier League, because it's not that he dwells in possession, but you know, the game is very quick in the Premier League, and I think that's something he would have to adapt to sooner rather than later. But as I said, there's a lot to like about him: his passing range, his ball recoveries, his interceptions, his mobility. You know, you could see how he could be an asset to Arsenal, Liverpool, you know, Benfica, Dortmund, every team that's been linked with him. There's a lot to like about the individual, and again, I really like the fact that he likes to carry the balls forward from the middle of the park, and he is quite good in tight spaces. I think in his early days of his career, just by browsing the net, he actually played further forward in his sort of elementary development years. Since becoming a professional footballer, that's stopped. And isn't Fluminense managed by Diniz, who's seen as a tactical, you know, genius over there in Brazil? And I think he's actually Brazilian manager now as well. I think he's got both roles. So again, that shows that he's an intelligent player, which again, you need a level of intelligence to play the game plan Mikel Arteta wants to deploy week in, week out, and definitely in big games. As I said, there's a lot to like about him. You know, Mikel Arteta with his razor sharp attention to detail could, you know, churn out the fine prints. As you can see in front of me, you know, he's very much the modern day midfielder, you know, with the passing metrics. Now, when you look at his, you know, the finer details of his metrics, obviously he's not going to score quite high for shots and assists and shot at creating actions. That's not his job. Clearances could evidently improve, as could aerial duels, even though there's not much about him. As I said, he could be slightly more progressive on the ball, and I think whether he goes to Arsenal, Liverpool, whoever, he'll have to do that. But progressive carries, progressive passes, pass completion, pass attempted, successful take-ons, tackles, they score quite high, people. As I said, there's a lot to work on, really, even the things that he's good at. But the rawness in his game, you could see why that fits into what we would want at Arsenal. And obviously I keep mentioning Liverpool because they're the team most aggressively linked with him. Evidently, obviously Liverpool. Again, don't forget to let me know your thoughts. And again, he's improving year in, year out. By now, you probably would have seen the graphic on screen, people, comparing him in 2022 versus in 2023, which was available online. And again, you can see what he scores quite well at, and obviously the areas that he needs fine-tuning and ultimately to improve upon, really and truly. So again, you're not going to find a finished article there. Off the top of my head, I'd say the last player that I thought to a degree was the finished article playing in the Brazilian league at the moment of going to Europe was probably Neymar, because he stayed until he was about 23 years of age. Again, you can see graphics on screen, people. This is obviously in 2022 when he was 21 years of age. Evidently, you can see what he scores high at and areas where he scores okay at, and also areas that he can improve in. Like I said, he is a rough diamond. You know, we're not going to find a finished article. I have to say it again, one wonders what the price tag is really and truly for him, really, because again, numerous clubs being linked with him is only music to Fluminense's ears because they can drive up the price. I personally, once again, feel Liverpool are going to get him. I think they've done the groundwork, but who knows? If there is a chance and Edu has ran the rule over him in his homeland, let's get it done. And most importantly, Mikel Arteta. Again, I personally think our midfield options are quite light, if I'm honest with you. As I said, apparently Liverpool have the priority for him in January. Again, his club refused to sell him. Apparently, personal terms with the player have already been agreed. He wasn't allowed to leave because obviously his club was still competing for trophies and things. He's also been linked with West Ham and Fulham. He would join any team at 22, 23 years of age with 156 appearances for Fluminense to his belt, 90 appearances in the Serie in the top division in Brazil, and 2 Brazilian caps. So there is a good foundation for him to obviously arrive in Europe. And his profile does excite me. It really does excite me. I think he is a really good player. I'd love to see him sign for the club. Many players are linked. Whether you're able to sign these players, as you know, are completely different things, people. So by now, I'm sure, you know, you've formulated your own opinion. If you know the player, you know, if you've done your research online, or maybe you've just listened to this video and taken my word at face value, which I don't you know, advise you lot to do. Form your own opinions. Let me know your thoughts. You know, again, as I said, the creative juices are probably flowing and you're doing calculations. Let me know. For me, it would excite me because I'm very passionate about Arsenal's need for a midfielder or 2, people, you know. And that's all from me. Again, smash the like button, comment, subscribe. Let me know your thoughts. I'm out.